basic caste. Caste. And how it differs from class. That's on 197. Class. Also on that same page, life chances. I already talked about that. Life chances on page 197. Starting at 198, theories of stratification. And that means Marx, Weber, and Davis and Moore. 3 theories of stratification. 3 sociological theories of stratification. Marx, Weber, Davis, Moore. Okay. Also then in the next section, income, wealth. We already talked about that in the book. Then social mobility on page 214. Inter and intra-generational mobility. Inter and intra-generational mobility. That's on page 214. Inter and intra-generational mobility. Terms are complicated, not so simple. Then on page 216, this is the section that's most helpful for doing your paper. There's a long section on poverty there. You need to know the difference between absolute and relative poverty. Between absolute and relative poverty. And what the American poverty line is. How it's constructed. The American poverty line. Okay. And those are the major concepts in that chapter. I want you to pay particular attention. All right, any questions on that stuff? Okay, chapter number 8. Here it's the opposite of chapter 7. Everything in that chapter is priority 3. Everything in that chapter is priority 3, except starting on page 243. How do sociological theories explain global inequality?
So what page number again?
That's page 243 to 251. That's priority 1. 243 to 251. But let me tell you which concepts to pay particular attention to. Make sure you know what modernization theory is on page 244. Modernization theory. And the name associated with it, Walt Rostow. So on page 244, modernization theory, Rostow. The opposite of modernization theory is what's called dependency theory. Dependency theory. That's on page 245. The name associated with that is Karl Marx. Karl Marx. All right, that's the stuff to pay attention to in that section. All right, I have 4 minutes left. Yes.
You said everything's priority number 3 except like the title is how
Theories of international inequality. Excuse me, global inequality. Sociological theories of global inequality, page 240.
And it was just the 2 chapters?
Those 2 chapters, plus lectures. Okay, let me just go into a little more depth talking about modernization and dependency theory, so it'll help out a little bit. That's probably the most abstract stuff there. Attempting to explain international inequality. We've got inequality inside countries, but we also got inequality between countries. Clearly, the world is divided in many cases between some very, very poor countries, largely in the third world in Africa, Latin America, and some very, very affluent countries, largely in the West and Asia. How come? Modernization theory, authored by Walt Rostow, says that's a simple function of technology. These poor countries are poor largely because they are agrarian. Remember, the most unequal countries on earth, agrarian. Agrarian. Therefore, how do you get yourself out of that situation where you got this agrarian poverty? You modernize. You modernize. What you want to do is to bring in modern technology to modernize your country. But to get to modern technology, you need companies in countries that already have it. So you open the doors of your country to foreign investment. They will bring in the modern technology that will bring modernization, limiting economic inequality. That's the argument. That's the argument. The opposite of that is what's called dependency theory. Dependency theory says, look, there are rich countries and there are poor countries. Just like Marx said, the rich are rich because they exploit the poor, making them dependent. They exploit poor countries. So, if that is true, what do? The opposite of what modernization theory does. Instead of opening your doors to foreign companies and you close the doors because all they're going to do is rip you off and exploit you. All right, so that's a thumbnail sketch for those. Just make it as simple as possible. Okay. So, quiz number 5.